What's up, Sugar Bushes and esteemed colleagues? As you can see, we're not in our usual setting, and that is because I am at my parental's house right now. So we are going to do this video in my old bedroom, which my mom has renovated into a horse girl room. Lovely. And I think next weekend we may also be here as well due to some information that was disclosed to me that I was not aware of until today when I got here. So last video, out of the murder jar, we pulled out the largest child kidnapping, which is what I wrote down because I forgot the name of the actual crime. The name I was looking for was actually the Chowchilla Kidnappings, which were one of the largest kidnappings that took place in the US. So let's dive on right in, my friends. So it's a boiling July day in 1976. The local school in Chowchilla has just done a sort of field trip to the local pool, and now all the kids are being driven on a bus by their bus driver Ed and being dropped off at their respective houses. Now, one thing you gotta understand, Chowchilla was a very small town. One of those towns where people don't lock their doors because they don't feel a need to. Everybody knew everybody, and it was just all around regarded as a very safe town. Also, since we couldn't bring all of our plushie friends, I brought Mr. Plague Doctor to kind of help set us the mood. So after a few of the kids get dropped off at their respective stops and houses, now there are 26 children on this bus left that still need to be dropped off. While driving, the bus driver, Ed, is coming to an intersection where there is a van broke down in the middle of the intersection. Now, like I said, Chowchilla was a relatively small town. Everybody knew everybody. There was no reason to think anything terrible was going to happen. Like he said, Ed full and well planned to open the door and see possibly one of his neighbors and give them a ride somewhere to where they can get their car fixed or towed. But that was not the case this time. As soon as he opens the door, two men armed with a sawed-off shotgun with pantyhose covering their face, such as like old-style bank robbers, board the bus. They tell Ed to get out of the driver's seat and move on to the back. Now keep in mind, this bus is filled with 26 children, ages ranging from 5 to 14, in their swimsuits because they had just got back from the local pool. Now, at first, the children didn't really know what was going on. They thought maybe it was just a joke, maybe it was some kind of prank, but as Ed was moving back to the bus, he looked at them all, he said, "Sit down, be quiet, do as they say." And now the kids had never heard Ed speak to them like that, so as soon as they heard the tone of voice he was speaking in, they knew something was seriously wrong. So these two men board the bus. One jumps in the driver's seat while the other one pulls crowd control with a sawed-off shotgun, making the kids sit down, shut up, and stay quiet, making sure Ed stayed his ass in the back seat. While a third man jumps in the van that was broken down and begins following the bus. Now the men drive the children about, I think it was around 7 or 8 miles away, into a slough, which is basically just a dried out riverbed, and that's where they park the bus. Now this riverbed had trees and bamboo growing out of it, and the bamboo was so tall, it was about twice the height of the bus, so it easily hid the bus within the bamboo so no one from the passing road could see it. So after they park the bus in the slough, the other man pulls up behind the bus with the van and opens the van doors as well as opening the back of the school bus door, the emergency exit. Now, as the children are looking into this mysterious van that just pulled up, they realize that it has been pretty much outfitted. All the windows have been blacked out. It's been reinforced with large pieces of wood, so there would be no way that they could either escape. There would also be no way they could see where they were going. So one by one, the kidnappers make these kids jump from the back of the bus, the emergency exit, into the van so they wouldn't leave any footprints on the ground. After one van was full, they pulled up a second van, same thing, retrofitted with reinforced large pieces of wood, blacked out the windows, the whole 9 yards, and then began filling that van up with kids as well. All in all, they load all 26 kids as well as the bus driver Ed into either one of these two vans, and then that's when they take off. A lot of these kids are getting motion sickness because they're disoriented from not being able to see anything, but still the motion of the van, and some of them are, puking because of that motion sickness. They also don't have anywhere to go to the bathroom, and they drove around for almost 12 hours. 12 whole hours of being stuck in this van, not knowing where you're going, not knowing if you're going to get killed. Yeah, like I said, these kids were between the ages of 5, and I think the oldest one was 14. I can't imagine how terrifying that would be to be a kid of that age, and these odd men have put a shotgun in your face and pretty much abducted you, and you can only assume that they're probably going to murder you. So now back in Chowchilla, the parents of one of the children come home from work and realize that their house isn't full of kids. You know, the way she described it was, you know, there was no chairs pulled out, there was no peanut butter on the table, there was no loud voices, they just weren't there, and they get a little worried. Now remember, this was the 70s, so it wasn't uncommon for kids to run off with their friends and go to their friend's house to have dinner, you know, what have you. So they begin calling around and asking other parents, well, did your child get dropped off from, you know, after school? A few of them say yes, because there was a handful of children that did get dropped off before the gunman stepped onto the bus. Abel. Yeah. Open the door.
What's up?
What's up?
What's you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we got me a new costume.
Did you?
Yes.
What kind of costume is it?
We got me a dragon tail. It looks so sick.
Oh yeah, it
Yes.
looks sick. Or
And
you're a
we
dragon
got-
tail?
So hey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Blue. It's called Blue from Jurassic Park.
No.
If I found a big rat snake.
You found a big rat snake?
Yeah, it was a long time when I was like I'm still 6, but that happened. And yeah, nettle rates in deep water sometimes smell good.
Yeah.
I used to have one.
Did
when I was
you?
little. Yeah, it was a dragon.
It was a dragon.
Yep. And hey, you can get this dragon statue. It looks so real.
Can you?
Yeah. If you didn't know, there was a new game on your Nintendo. You know what it's called?
What's it called?
It's called Minecraft New Series Battle. I'm going to tell you one dark secret in Goat Simulator.
Yeah?
That show though?
What is it?
Rick.
Rick and Morty? Or just Rick?
That's Rick.
What is it?
It's not an old goat, it's a T-Rex.
Oh, it's a T-Rex.
You have to watch out because you know why?
Why?
Don't hit one of those baby eggs.
Yeah, because you'll get attacked and it'll hatch.
But when you unlock the fisting of the mermaid,
Yeah.
you might be able to have this new power called.
Hey, buddy.
What?
Okay, I'm filming something right now.
Yes.
So, let me finish filming this, and I will come downstairs and you can tell me all about Goat Z, okay?
I do not know what you're filming.
I'm filming a YouTube video right now.
And I'm missing an arm.
You're missing an arm, oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no, where'd it go?
I don't
Can
know.
you get the door open? Hey, when I'm done, I'll come downstairs and you can tell me all about Goat Z, alright?
Yeah, it's the whole game.
The whole game?
Yes.
Okay, I will come down and you're gonna tell me the whole game.
One thing.
What?
Always remember, tell me how the game you think got built one day, okay?
Okay, alright, I will do. I love that kid. I love him so much. Okay, I kind of forgot where I was. Let's just go back to what I remember. So, like I said, they had been driving these kids around for 12 hours. Now, prior, back at Chowchilla, about 2 hours in, the parents kind of got worried and were like, hey, started calling around to other parents and were like, do you know where my child is? Or did your child come home? Some parents were like, yeah, my child came home, because before the bus had gotten pretty much hijacked, they actually did drop off a few of the kids. So some parents were like, yeah, but it was a very small handful. But majority of the parents they called, they're like, no, our kids haven't come home either. I thought they were with you, you know, so on and so forth. You know how that song and dance goes. Then they realize something is wrong. So they end up calling authorities around 2 to 3 hours later, which in the 70s, that was basically like that was like immediately. Because like I said, 70s, everyone was out, you know, it wasn't uncommon for a parent to be like, hey, go play till the streetlights come on and come home. So finally, the parents called the sheriff's department and they're like, hey guys, what's up, old buddy, old pals, old champs? Like 26 of our kids are missing. If you could kind of help us, that would be cool. And so the sheriff's department, along with the parents, retrace the bus route, and it leads to nowhere. They have no idea where this bus went. The sheriff's department eventually starts searching by air, and that's when they find the bus that has been stashed away in the slough, hidden by the bamboo. So the sheriff and his deputies, boom, take off and go and investigate. They can't find any footprints. They have no clue what happened, but they do see the tire tracks of the van, and they realize that the kids have been now loaded onto a van and taken somewhere, and they have no clue. And that is a very scary thought, because they're thinking now, it's going to be twice as hard to find them, because we don't know what this van looks like. We don't know who took the kids. We don't even know if it's all the kids or if they killed some of them and dropped them somewhere else. We have absolutely no effing clue what's going on. So with that information at hand, sheriff calls the governor, I think it was the governor, and basically asks for the help of the FBI right off the rip. Doesn't even try to be like, well, we can, I have trust in my community, like, a lot of police departments or sheriff's department do. Like, I have a trust in my men that we can take care of this on our own. We don't need any big government agencies in here. Nope. Immediately he's like, hey, we need the FBI's help to find these kids, because there are 26 of them, and holy hell in a handbasket, this is a lot to handle. Our homeboy mayor calls the FBI and is like, hey bud, we kind of like got a super not chill situation down here, and yeah, I'm gonna need your help down in good old Chowchilla. And the FBI is like, bro, no problem, I got you, don't worry. Boom, sends 30 FBI agents down there to hop on the case. Now meanwhile, like I said, these kids have been driven around are now, at this point in time that the FBI and the sheriff and stuff like that get involved, the kids are still actively being driven around. At the end of it all, they were driven around for 12 hours. 12 hours crammed inside of that van, and like I said, some of them got motion sickness and vomited. They weren't allowed bathroom breaks, and some of them had to really use the bathroom inside the van. So while these kids are being driven around for 12 hours, simultaneously the parents are actively looking for them. The sheriff's department found the bus, and then the governor calls the FBI and is like, hey buddy, we need some help, chief. As these kids are being driven around, it's not like one of those things where they're all just like, nothing's happening, everything's gonna be okay, blah 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 blah. They're like singing songs to each other to help the little ones cope. The older ones are singing songs with each other to help the younger children cope with what's happening. They sing shit like Boogie Nights, whatever was big back in the 70s. I don't even think I was a thought back in the 70s, so I have no idea. I do like some 70s music, but like Boogie Nights, and there was a few more classics that were always on the radio. But they also did sing If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands. But instead of singing If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands, they changed it to If You're Sad and You Know It, Clap Your Hands. So these kids are terrified. They've been driving for so long. Some of them are covered in puke. They have had to really use the bathroom in the van. It smells disgusting. They've been driven around for 12 freaking hours while their parents are frantically looking for them. The FBI is now involved. The whole works, fireworks. Let me tell you, sister. July 16th, basically the next day, the van comes to a stop. Now the kids have no clue, where they are, what's going to happen, and one of the van's doors rips open and they grab Ed and pull him out of the van. Now, these kids are terrified because they have no clue what is happening. They have no clue if these people are taking Ed around the corner and shooting him or what's happening. So one by one, the kidnappers begin opening the van and pulling kids out one by one. They don't pull them out at the same time. They just pull them out one by one. So the only two kids left in the van now are 14-year-old Michael Marshall as well as another 5-year-old. Mike is in kind of a predicament because he doesn't want to send the 5-year-old girl out before him because, he's not going to do that to her. But also, he's got to go out now, leaving her alone in this van. And he said it was just heartbreaking because he had to literally pry this little girl's hands off of his shoulder to get her to let go of him so he could step out of the van. So as the kids have been pulled out of the van, they're basically all one by one led to what looks like essentially a manhole with a ladder going down. They're looking around and they realize they have no clue where they are. They're out in the middle of frickin' nowhere. And the only thing out there is this little box with a ladder going down into a black abyss. So as, Michael gets down there and the 5-year-old girl is the last one to get down there, they realize that everyone's still alive though, they didn't kill anybody. Ed's down there. They're all still alive, but they're in some of this weird like bunkerish thing. They can't really see because they're not used to the darkness yet, but their eyes slowly adjust. They realize that there are mattresses laying on the ground. There are what looks like, small toilets basically, with just a hole cut into the whatever bunker they were in, just a hole cut into the ground. Essentially that's all it was, as well as there was a table with some water and a little bit of food on it, and they could hear fans circulating, which told them that they were being given fresh air. So these kids are basically trapped in this like straight up Saw makeshift bunker thing, like they're about to play a game to survive. So the kidnappers basically pull up the ladder and they're like, hey, little dudes, we'll be back for you in a little bit. Have fun. And then they shove what it was like a big old manhole cover over it, and they hear them drop something heavy on top of the manhole cover. And then they hear dirt being shoveled onto them like these men are burying them alive. So while these children are being buried alive, this story has broke national news because it's like the largest kidnapping in the United States. No one has any idea why these children have been taken. No one has come forward and said anything. Walter Cronkite basically goes on national news as like, these children have vanished. Where did they go? The president's involved. Literally everyone's asking why. There could not have been a bigger story at this time. So while the world, literally the world, or the US at least, is freaking out about these missing kids, down in the bunker that they've been buried alive in, there's this one kid. I feel you, buddy, big same, because he is just so frustrated. He starts kicking these bricks. And these bricks are holding up these large support beams that are basically holding up the ceiling. And he realizes, though, with each kick, he's moving one of the bricks. So he keeps kicking and keeps kicking, takes all that frustration out on it, and then eventually kicks the brick out from under the support beam, and the roof starts caving in, and the walls kind of start bowing in because that support beam is gone. So everybody's now freaking out because they're, one, afraid they're either going to suffocate down there, because now they have realized that the fans that were once circulating air have stopped circulating air. They have ran out of food and only have a little bit of water left. So they're either going to suffocate to death, they're going to starve to death, or the ceiling's going to cave in and they're going to be crushed to death. Not a really good scenario looking at it from all angles, you know what I'm saying. So after this kid basically Shaolin soccered one of the support beams, the older kids and Ed get together and they're like, you know what? If we're gonna die, we are going to die trying to get the hell out of here. So basically what they do is they stack up all the mattresses that were inside the little bunker area. Michael crawls up on top of them, gets to the manhole cover, and starts pushing and pushing, In one of the interviews, he looks like a very classic handy rancher man. He basically says, I'm giving it all I got and it ain't moving. So Mike's giving it all he got and it ain't moving, but the kids are cheering him on. They're like, come on, Mike, you can do it. If we're gonna die, we're gonna die getting the hell out of here. We're gonna die fighting. And all of a sudden, one of the kids says, hey, it moved. And Mike realizes that he has actually moved this manhole cover about, I think, a foot or half a foot, something like that. But enough to where he can squeeze himself up through, but he's still a little scared because you don't know what's up there. The kidnappers could be waiting to shoot him as soon as he pulls himself up to the hole. But like you said, we're gonna die trying to get out of here alive. The ventilation has stopped. We've ran out of food and water. We're either gonna die from the roof caving in, or starvation, or suffocation, or we can die trying to get the hell out of here. So Mike pulls himself up through the manhole cover and he looks around and he realizes that he's in like this weird wooden box thing, and he's kind of confused because he kind of thinks, well, is it a bunker on top of a bunker? But he starts pushing on it and touching it and realizes it's just like particle board. It's like plywood. So he just starts hammer fisting this wood. and it starts breaking slowly, and it breaks and it breaks, and eventually it breaks open to where he can see the surface. And the kids describe it as with the dust raining down into the manhole in the bunker as Mike's punching this wood, and the moonlight is catching the dust as it's coming down. It looks like shooting stars. So after Mike basically Cobra Kai's this wooden box open, he realizes that what was on top of the manhole cover that made it so heavy were 2 giant truck batteries. So basically he gets out, and then him and Ed help the rest of the kids get out of the bunker. Once every kid is safely out, they look around and realize that they're in the middle of absolute nowhere. One of the girls that was down there actually looked at the hole they were in and said that it looked exactly like a sand dune. Like if they hadn't have made it out, like you wouldn't be able to tell they were there. So often the old distoroni, the old distance, they start hearing like sounds of like large heavy machinery and stuff like that. You know, they really don't have much of a choice, so they start following it. They're not sure if it's where their captors are or what have you, but they're literally in the middle of nowhere. They have no idea where they are. So, you know, Ed's like, well, let's just follow this noise. So they follow this noise, and they're walking and they're walking and they're walking and walking, and they come upon a quarry. And it's about 8 p.m. at this time. So the night shift workers are there, and they see Ed and these 26 kids who are in bathing suits, and they're probably red in the eyes from crying so much. And Ed's like, hey, we're from Chowchilla and we're kind of lost. Of course, this quarry worker knows exactly who he is because, again, the story has broke national news. National news. Everyone knows who these kids are. You know, they gotta find these kids. So immediately, this quarry worker goes and phones the police. So after Ed makes contact with these quarry workers, they figure out that they're actually in Livermore, California, which is like only a couple hours from Chowchilla. The captors just drove them around for 12 hours because they wanted them to be disoriented and not know exactly where they were. So basically the authorities are called, they take pictures of the children. You can look at, I'll post some pictures throughout obviously you've seen some of the pictures I posted at the story, I'll post some more. They're all wide-eyed and kind of frantic, and so the police department loads them up on a bus, kind of ironic, and takes them to a nearby detention center. And one of the kids even says as they're going into the prison or the jail, they're like, I think we're in trouble. But it was really just the only place that the police had in that small town that could house all these kids until they figured out what to do. So they get these children who are all just cried out. They're dehydrated from crying. They got dirt all over them and things of that nature. They load them all. They put them all in a classroom, basically. And it's funny because they give these kids prison jumpsuits to wear in lieu of their dirty clothes. And I'll post pictures, but like some of them are running around with the arms and legs just like flapping about, and some of them are all rolled up. So basically they get a bunch of doctors in, and doctors check out the kids, make sure they're okay. They're just very dehydrated from crying so much, you know, running out of water, things of that nature. But besides some minor cuts and bruises, they're not really actually like seriously injured. And they're all just very happy that they're all alive and they're out of the situation they were in. So they get loaded on, after they've been fed pizza, or they've been fed soda and apples, get loaded onto a bus, you know, from this prison station. And they had officers in the room with them, like some of the other female officers were like comforting the really small children and stuff like that. But they get loaded onto a Greyhound bus, and they are now transported back to Chowchilla. So these children get a police escort back to good old Chowchilla, and when they get there, they get there, mind you, they get there at 4 in the morning, and they are greeted by a onslaught of press reporters, you know, individuals, police officers, relieved parents, things of that nature. And these kids start stepping out of the bus, and even one of the reporters is like, hey, Mike, you know, talking to Mike who saved everybody. And he was like, hey, Mike, how's the pit? Blah, 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 blah. And these kids had no idea who these people were, but these people knew these kids by name because the story was literally national news. So after the kids are safely transported home, police and investigators return to the bunker site, and they begin digging up what is actually a moving truck. And I'm not talking about a one-bedroom apartment moving truck. I am talking a full 2-story house size moving truck. Now this thing is huge. It's insanely huge. So the police start looking around and they're like, how, for one, someone to do this here, it has to have taken them months. This is months of planning and work put into this. And two, I wonder if the quarry nearby may have the equipment to do this. So they take off down to the quarry and start asking some questions, and who do they find? The quarry owner's son, Fred Newhall Woods, who also has a pretty awesome rap sheet. Because not too long ago, two of his buddies, James and Richard Schofield, they were all three arrested for Grand Theft Auto because they worked at a used car store, but they didn't even steal the car. They got caught planning to steal the car. And I'm no criminal, but if you get caught planning to steal something and not actually steal something, you're probably an idiot. And of course, none of the dudes ever spent jail time for their crimes. They just got off with a slap on the wrist because their families were very rich, respectable people. So the police start looking into them. Security guards at the quarry confirm their identities, and police review the security footage and notice that those three individuals were digging a large hole near the quarry. So they're like, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. So they go over to Fred Woods' parents' estate. So once they're at Fred's dad's estate or parents' estate, they find the shotgun used in the kidnappings. They find, the clothing, the pantyhose, whatever. And if this shit could not get any Scooby-Doo, Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey movie enough, they literally find paperwork that says plans in big capital letters across the top of it, and it's literally, plans out how to do the kidnapping, basically. So arrest warrants are pretty much issued for Fred Woods and James and Richard Schofield. And Richard Schofield turns himself in, I think, like 8 days or something after the kids had escaped. But Fred and Jamesy boy take off in two separate directions. Long story short, they don't make it very far. The cops pick their ass up. I think Fred was trying to head north to Canada and got picked up trying to cross the border, and James was going all around the western United States. Now, this still doesn't answer the question, why? Why did they do this? What was the point of kidnapping 26 kids? Well, while the police were going over, their diabolical scheme that they had written out in neat little pretty handwriting, there was also a ransom note in there that just never got delivered. Now, why didn't the ransom note get delivered, Snaxton? Well, I'll tell you, buddy. So, like I said, this is some Home Alone, Scooby-Doo, goddamn Harley Brothers, Nancy Drew shit. So, they were supposed to call the Chowchilla Police Department and demand their ransom as well, and then be like, we will be sending you the ransom note soon, right? So, they try to call the Chowchilla Police Department. Now, the story was already breaking news, so they couldn't get through. The phone lines were too tied up with people calling in, wanting information on the story and trying to give, helpful tips, whatever. But the phone line was busy, so they just couldn't get through. So they're like, you know what? Let's let it simmer down a little bit. Let's take a nap, pep ourselves up, get some nice refresher energy in us, and get ready to mastermind the biggest kidnapping, the bestest kidnapping, the most wildest kidnapping in all of history. We're going to get some good sleep, wake up, demand our ransom, get our money, pay off our debts. So they go to sleep, and they wake up, and they turn on the news, and Ed and the kids have already escaped at this point. So they're just like, what in the cinnamon toast fuck? Their brilliant plan came crumbling down in less than 72 hours. So basically, the reason they kidnapped the kids was because they owed a lot of debt and they needed to pay their debt off. But instead of asking their really rich and well-off families, they were like, let's just kidnap some kids, whatever. Because children are precious and the state will pay a lot of money for these kids. And we needed a lot of kids because we needed a lot of money. I think they won like $5 million or something like that. So they're basically charged with 26 or 27 counts of kidnapping, as well as 8 counts of bodily harm due to the cuts and bruises and minor injuries the children sustained in the whole debacle. And so these dudes, as lawyers, are like, hey buds, you're facing life in prison no matter what. No matter how you look at this horse, you're gonna go away forever. But if you plead guilty to the bodily harm, you won't get parole. So plead not guilty to that, buddy. And so they tried, and the judge was like, yeah, fuck you guys. And I highly encourage you to go watch the videos of these kids, because these kids all went back and testified against these dudes. They also made the kids record a story so they could go back and listen to themselves tell it. So they, because obviously, all jokes aside, there was a lot of trauma that went into this. These kids suffered tons of trauma because of this situation. So they made them record a story so they could go back and listen to it, so they forget things, this, that, and the other. But I highly encourage you to go and watch the video of these kids talking about testifying in court. Like one little girl, I think they ask, why do you think they did this to you? And she's like, I don't know. I guess they wasn't loved enough. And there was another part where she talks about having to take her gum out while she goes up and testifies because she didn't want to spit it at them because she got so angry at what they did. She'd spit her gum at them, so she gave it to her dad to hold. So the court battle goes on, so on and so forth. Basically, all three of them are charged and convicted of the bodily harm as well as the kidnapping. Like I said, all jokes aside, these kids did suffer traumatic, vivid night terrors, nightmares, like I said, just a very severe case of PTSD because it was a very, like I said, we've kind of said it in a funny light because no one died, but it was a very, terrifying experience for these children. So after those dudes get convicted and shoot off to prison, those kids do get a trip to good old Disneyland. And then February 26th of the same year, Chowchilla celebrated their first annual Edward Ray and Children's Day. So they have this whole day named after them that they still actually celebrate to this day in Chowchilla. So the criminals actually appeal at some point to overturn the bodily harm charges, and they actually win that appeal, so then now they're eligible for parole. So about the time when parole hearings start happen, the survivors of the Chowchilla kidnappings are drugged back into court to testify against these people again, which is just added trauma. All in all, at the end of the day, at the end of everything, if I remember correctly, the survivors had been drugged back into court around 60 times to have to re-testify against their kidnappers. And like I said, a lot of these victims suffered from PTSD and things of that nature. A lot of them suffered night terrors. They had very troubled youth years and teen years, and lots of drinking and heavy drug use. Not all of them, but most of them, just from the trauma. But as far as I could read, a lot of them really turned themselves around, got sober, got clean, and worked on themselves and worked through that trauma, which is so proud of them for that. It's such a hard thing to do, especially experiencing having a shotgun put in your face at 6 years old and being kidnapped and buried alive, essentially. And I know even one of the survivors met up with the Schofield brothers, who got the Schofield brothers got paroled. They got released from prison because it was speculated that Fred Wood was the mastermind behind everything the whole time, and the Schofield brothers just kind of were stupid and got roped into the whole thing. And if I remember correctly, Fred Wood is still in prison to this day, and won't be eligible for parole around until 20. His next parole hearing would be 2024, 2025, something like that. But one of the survivors actually, said, I'm not gonna feel better until I talk to them and, basically talk it out, forgive them and things of that nature. And the Schofield brothers did agree to sit down and talk with them. But as far as I can tell, most of the survivors have worked through their trauma. I still highly encourage you to look up this story and read more about it. As usual, this is a very condensed version. There was a lot to it. And then after all said and done, Ed, the bus driver, he went on to continue to drive after all that happened. He still went back to being a bus driver. I think he drove the bus for 12 more years until he died. He passed around May 17th of 2012. And then also the remaining survivors filed a lawsuit against their kidnappers, which they ended up settling in court. One of the survivors has said that the amount of money they got is enough for some serious therapy, but not enough to buy a house. And that is the absolute insane, horrifying story of the Chowchilla school bus kidnapping. It's regarded as one of the largest kidnappings in the United States. It is such an insane story. It is traumatic. It is horrifying, but at the end, it's also like what kind of Scooby-Doo shit, like just how dumb the kidnappers were and the great lengths they went through to have it all unfold and foil on them in like less than 3 or 4 days. Absolutely bananas. But that is one of the most, it's such an insane story. I love telling it. I highly encourage watching the 48 hours on it, as well as looking at some of the articles, watching the kids in court, looking at some pictures, other from the ones that I'm going to show you here. But I highly, highly, highly encourage it. But now it is time to pick another name out of a murder jar for next week. So let's see who we draw out of the murder pot for this next week's episode of True Crime. Alright, grab 2. We only need 1. Who is it? Who is it? Ooh, hell yeah. Heaven's Gate, another cult. I love me some cults. Let me tell you. So next week we're doing Heaven's Gate. So I hope to see you then, where we look at the good old Heaven's Gate cult. Follow me on all my other social medias. I will post a link to all that in the bio. Join our coven. I'll post the Discord link in the bio as well. We have a podcast coming soon. I swear to gosh, I will let you know as soon as you can find it on all major platforms. Thank you so much for stopping by for another episode of True Crime. As always, I'm your host, Naxton. I will see you guys next week. Sorry I didn't post a Paranormal Corner this weekend. It's been insane. I don't know if I'll have one next week. We're working on it, sisters. I promise. I promise. Sisters, misters, and non-binary folks, we will work on it. I swear to gosh. Alright, I love you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, I love you so much. Have a good day. Be kind to others. Be kind to yourself. Wear a mask. Compliment yourself today. And I hope you have the best day ever. Bye-bye.